Hello, everyone, and welcome to the official Got Dreams livecast and podcast. Got Dreams is a digital learning arena for artists and professionals who want to gain new creative skill sets, grow an online audience, and master their money so they can truly own their dreams. Let's welcome the creator of Got Dreams, Ted McGrath, who has created 5 household brands, made millions teaching coaches, speakers, and service-based business owners how to turn their life story into a message that impacts the lives of millions. Welcome, Ted. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Ready to rock and roll again.
It's always great to have you. And we're actually coming to folks from the past because we are recording this for our Wednesday live stream because we'll actually be out of the office. Ted's got an amazing vacation adventure in front of him. But we wanted to make sure you guys had your fill and we answered your questions. So what we did was we compiled a list of questions that you guys are asking across all of our social media channels. And let's kick it off, Ted. So the first question is, I've just started my online business, but I'm having trouble identifying my potential clients. Where do I begin?
Oh, God, we're right into the mix here, huh? No warm-up, no fun. Just
no warm-up, no stories, nothing.
Identifying potential clients. Okay. No. Oh, God. So, I mean, one, I think, here's what I do. I reverse engineer it. What am I going to teach first, right? So if I was creating my business and I would write down all the things I want to teach, right? What are the 4 or 5 things I would teach? So let's say my topic's general. I don't know who my perfect client is, but I'm in the area of business. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I teach in business? What would I teach? Well, first I got to take an inventory of the things that I know. So I know sales, I know coaching, I know marketing, I know messaging, I know story, I know speaking, I know, performing, I know all kinds of different stuff, right? So I would make a list of the things that I know and jot them down. And then I would go, okay, in order of priority, what are the most important things that I would want to teach? So I just listed 7 or 8 things. What are the order of priority of the things that I would teach the most that everybody needs, right? So here's the basic things that everybody needs. I'm like, okay, well, everybody needs message. So I put that at the top. And I don't even know who my ideal client is yet, but like if I'm teaching business, I'm teaching entrepreneurs of some sort. So I go, all right, so what falls in this category? Message for sure. You got to have a message, you got to have sales, you got to have XYZ. And then I just put priority. Here's the priorities. And then I make a list and I go, okay, who does this apply to? So for me, it would be a list of, well, this could apply to coaches, consultants, service businesses. So we got 3 people right there. So you have 3 areas that it applies to right out of the gates. And that's the first thing that I look at. And that's kind of your initial bucket, right? You might have one person it applies to, like one group of people that it applies to. Or you might have 3. But then at a certain point, you get outside the strike zone. So the strike zone for us would be consultants, service businesses, coaches. Then you start getting out the strike zone a little bit. And you go into, well, what other people does this apply to? And so for me, when I first started, I was like, well, we're helping people with coaching, programs and businesses. But then we started to look at it and go, well, information and knowledge and advice that applies to a lot more people than coaches and consultants and service businesses. Like we're seeing now, obviously, it applies to artists who want to teach things. It applies to people of all different industries, people who want to teach cooking, people who want to teach stuff about dogs. There's so many different things you could teach. So you start to widen your net a little bit and go, okay, well, this would apply to a lot more people. And then you might say, well, what are the top industries that I would want to go after now, right? Or the top demographics I would want to go after that it does apply to. I've got coaches, consultants, and service businesses as my strike zone, and then I've got all these other people. The question then becomes, though, do I want to go wide initially to a whole mass group of people, or do I want to keep it with a smaller advertising budget, just niche to the people that I know it definitely applies to? And I would say just keep it niched to the people it definitely applies to out of the gates because they're your strike zone. So there's no reason to go out to everybody initially when you'd have less likelihood of connecting with those people who are outside the strike zone. So that's how you find your potential client. It's just that exercise.
Right. And I think it's important too. I mean, you mentioned staying within your strike zone and really focusing on a very specific client base to start. And then once you have success, then you can go outside of that. But what are your thoughts on, because I think a lot of folks will say, well, I'm good at this, or I have a passion for this. Should people focus on the clients that they have a passion for, or do you think that's self-limiting in its scope?
Yeah, well, I think it's like you have a passion for certain types of clients. You also have a passion for what you're teaching. So what you're teaching probably crosses over to the people you want to serve to some degree. And then you might go, well, okay, well, it crosses over to this type of person, like these three types of people. Which one do I want to serve the most?
Right. Just start
Yeah.
with your prioritized list.
Yeah, I mean, I could be passionate about helping a lot of people, uh, in what we're doing, but obviously there's a demographic of people that we want to go after and serve. Plus, also you're running a business, so you want to target people like you'd be passionate about helping people that have no money, right? And that have real problems with money. That could be like a market that you want to go after. Okay, you might want to teach financial advice and principles to them. Question is, can they afford your services? And if they can't, that might be something that's a cause that you actually start a cause that is part of like your mission, to where my business serves people who are like able to invest with me financially. And then my cause and my mission and my give back is to people maybe who have like financial illiteracy that I want to help. And I want to make sure that everybody has financial literacy on the planet. And so I have this mission that I take money from my business and I fund that and I give it away for free, because that's my contribution to the world. I think you just got to think intelligently about how you're going to run a business. Peter Drucker, management guru, years ago said a business exists to create a profit. I don't believe that that's 100% true, but he was time tested in what he did. And that's one piece. That's one point of view. A certain aspect of a business is you have to create a profit to be in business. It's not the only reason it exists, though, in my opinion.
Right. So finding that balance, but I think you make an important distinction here, and that is that it's critical for, if you're going to be in business, you do need to make money. And if you focus on folks who don't have money, then that's going to be much more difficult. And you can, instead of trying to focus on that as your business for potential clients, use that as your cause that you can then contribute to and build towards. But I think that's a really important point. People who are going to buy your products need to be able to invest in it.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, like, one of my causes is drug-free world, of like educating and informing people the truth about drugs, but that's not my business, and that's also not like it's a cause, a thing that I promote to create awareness, but I'm also not the one interacting with those people to help them get off drugs and take them to the next step. I just want to promote awareness for this. Somebody else created the booklets and all the things and the way to help these people but my desire is to promote, to create awareness, right? So you got to just decide how deep you want to get into anything that you do. Do you want to be a promoter of it? Because in some aspects that's where some people's stuff ends, because they're passionate about it. It's not their expertise to help in that, right? Or do you want to build a business where it's got to be your expertise to really help and take people from A to Z on it? It's a different thing,
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, I'm worried about the economic climate. How can I launch my business when I'm worried that we're in a recession?
I think my personal view is people are worried about the economic climate all the time. I mean, you talk to people are worried about money in general, so like, I just believe if you have a stability around money, whatever the climate is, you're going to have that attitude. Like, the climate's not good, great, but I have a stability around my ability to make money, so I'm not going to be worried about the climate. I'm going to actually be capitalizing on the climate. So I think that's just a perspective, in one, you go, well, I'm so worried because like the Fed is printing money. Well, great. We'll go over to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's going up by 100% a year. So shift your perspective, get some knowledge in an area that is thriving and isn't turning into, nuclear, whatever, disintegration, like our current economy. I don't believe at all in our current economic system at all, in the least bit. But I'm not sitting here complaining about it. You ask my opinion about it. Do you believe in it? Not at all. What are you doing? I have completely different approach to what I'm doing right now. My future and what I bet my future on is in the new technology that exists, which is the blockchain. And I'm betting that that's where the trend of the future is going, So it's, when I went to online, I was making a bet on digital marketing. It was a bet, right? So I at one point I made a decision that all my focus is going over here and all my money from my seminar business is going over here, period. So I think it's just your economic perspective has to do with how you view things. For me, I've always had an easy time to kind of expand to some degree because my perspective is like, even Michael and I were talking, and if somebody presents me a good solution, I'm like, great, let's do it. Like we needed somebody for Upwork to do the videos. I think my point of view on life now is like where I need the right people and enough of the people to where I want the resources that people brought to me so we can hire more and expand. My thing is not, do I need to make a decision on investing the money? If it sounds good and it's aligned with what we're doing, I'm investing the money, So I think the money perspective is just a way of operating. It's a way of being. And it's also looking at if you're worried about the climate, then change the climate, You don't need to be part of a melting iceberg, financial iceberg. You can be part of a one that's actually, not leaking energy, literally not leaking energy like the blockchain. So yeah.
Right. And it's fascinating to me because you look at folks like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett always said, be fearful when other people are greedy and be greedy when other people are fearful. And this is great to live by because if, like, for example, when COVID hit and everyone started working from home, I went and bought a bunch of Zoom stocks because I knew with the financial crisis hit, everything was on sale. And I knew that people were going to be working from home. So I'm like, oh, what platforms should I be investing in for the future while stocks are on sale? And I bought a ton of Zoom and it just went through the roof. So there's always opportunity regardless of what the climate is.
That's right. Yeah. And typically like Zoom was a great bet and that was obviously like, if you were looking at it logically, you would have been like, oh, of course that makes sense. But most people weren't, right?
They were scared.
Yeah. But of course you saw it as a digital marketer and go, this makes sense. Right. Most people weren't looking at that. They were scared about other things and they weren't looking at it. But Zoom was obviously an extraordinary logical choice. Hindsight. You look at it now, and those are all the things where people go, yeah, of course I should have done that. I remember when Tesla bombed down, and I remember buying more just because Tesla's still one of the best investments I made today to this day, like 9x my money on it.
Dude, me too. I bought in 2012. I only bought 12 shares in 2012, but they're up like 30,000%, dude.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, right? Tesla's phenomenal. So I just also when I do start to look at things like that, I like to understand the inner workings. So I studied Elon and I want to understand how does he think? Do I agree on everything that he does? No, but he's got an interesting thinker. So when you talk about an economic climate, which is what we are on. And most people sit in the norm and they're waiting for the norm to bail out or change. My brother was telling me last night something about Bezos. He's like, yeah, Bezos says, you got to get used to being misunderstood for a while. Because when you're doing something that's unique, people don't understand you, And my brother was making that analogy because I've done things that in the beginning, sometimes people don't understand them. And he says, you have a really good perspective. My brother's giving me a compliment of you do things that sometimes people don't understand, but then they get to understand it years later. And so I've always watched people like that. I learned about Bezos through my brother who worked for the company, and I bought Amazon stock because I started to understand how they operate from somebody who worked for the company. So when I'm interested in people or things that I want to learn about and I agree with the philosophy and it makes sense, that's when I start getting into a new climate. And certainly the same thing happened with Bitcoin. Now, we're not giving financial advice to invest in anything or how to invest. It's not my thing in terms of being teaching that as a financial expert. But in terms of Bitcoin, is the same thing. I got interested and I studied and I learned and philosophically it made sense. And while the bridge was burning somewhere else, I was like, well, let's go somewhere where it's not. And I think it's just you got to start looking for those opportunities. Otherwise, you're going to be in a position in life where you're waiting on somebody else to change. Something that's not going to change when you can just go to something that's already changing for the good,
Right. And be a part of that growth. That's a phenomenal point. All right. So how do I okay, here's another question. I've had some success in the past with my online coaching business, but my results are inconsistent. How do I fix that?
Well, just find out why they're inconsistent, right? That's always the first answer is like, why is something existing the way it is? Like, right, the results are not consistent, and so why is that the case? And it's just common sense. You go look, and what am I not doing? Now, activity drives consistent results, the right activities. So
Right.
when you don't have the right activities, then you got to find the right activity. If you're doing the right activity, but you're not producing consistent results, you're probably not doing enough of it. And that's the other thing. We were talking this morning about, like, I was met with all my coaches this morning. We're talking about our programs and how do we help our clients better. And I said, one of the things we're talking about is like my coaches have a thing to where we're managing clients to get their 30 free coaching sessions. Like it's not enough to just teach them information and coach them on the information. You have to manage them to the result that we're aiming for. So manage them to get their 30 free coaching sessions. And somebody asked me, well, what do you do when somebody comes back 1 week and they've got just a couple coaching sessions, and you're trying to get them 10 a week? Do you then just say, hey, get 10 more? No, you missed out on 8 this past week, and you have 10 more to get. So you got to get 18, right? So you can't skip a week because that week catches up with you. So it's managing the activity of what happened. Why didn't I hit the 10 that I was supposed to do? Now, I understand this because when I was 21, we used to have like something in our insurance agency called performance reviews every week. So I'd go walk in with my manager and he'd go, so great. So tell me, how's it going? Not as well as I want it to be going. Great. Why not? And you'd have your scorecard in front of you, what you did, right? And they go, okay, pull up your scorecard. Hey, look at how many appointments did you hold? I held 8 appointments. You're supposed to be holding 10 at a minimum a week, right? I held 8 appointments. Great. Pull up your calendar. Let me see how many appointments you had last week. Pull it up. You have 2 in there. Here's 2 appointments, right? So I learned early on that it's like, if you're not doing the activity, of course you're not going to get the results. And you have to manage the activity with yourself and look at the truth of not what you want it to be, but what you really had. I really had 2 meetings. The other 6 meetings that I had weren't even meetings, So I think that's just perspective. Find the right activity and manage that activity.
Right. And if you've had success in the past, you've done something right, and identifying exactly what that is going to be important. And to your second point, if you know what that is, but you're not doing it, there you go.
Yeah. And most things you're new to your point, like you don't know, people don't know what it's in when you're new. Don't expect yourself to know when you're new. You don't know. And so when I talk to people on enrollment calls, sometimes they think they have some idea of why they don't want to do something. And typically it's not based on data. It's not based on, so they have this idea wherever they got it somewhere, some false piece of data. So when you're new, don't just accept something that I'm not going to do something because you heard it from somebody else. Make sure whatever you heard, you check it, you fact check it, and go, is what I heard correct? And make sure it is, because sometimes you hold information and go, well, this thing's terrible, when you haven't fact checked it yet. It's kind of like, advertising's tough this year. It's tough every year, man. It goes up every year. It's like, so every year it's like the costs have gone up this year. When haven't they gone up? Like,
right.
Maybe they gone up by a little bit more, but we hear it every year, Mike. You know that. Every year we hear from people, oh, Facebook's this or whatever. It's not, come on. Of course, Facebook's costs are going to go up. The Fed increased the money supply by 35%. Things are inflating. So you need to adjust your business prices, or you need to do whatever you need to do, or make more money. But like, you can't expect a multi-billion or $1 trillion company to not adjust their prices when the economy has completely gone to whatever. Of course, their prices are going to go up. Maybe they went up more than we expected, but if you hear the data of like Facebook, you can't succeed on Facebook anymore. Well, come on, there's plenty of people succeeding on Facebook. We're succeeding on Facebook, so not true.
Yeah, that's a great segue into our next question. This person says, I've always had a negative relationship with money. How do I change that?
It's different. I guess people are different, so I don't know where that happens. I'm not going to get into when that first began or whatever. I just think, you gotta, here's the thing, like, what is it still about for you for business? Like, what are you trying to create? What's so exciting to you that you're going to go create it, and the creation of it demands money? You know, like expansion demands money. Like I'm very passionate about expansion on things that I'm passionate about, right? So I'm passionate about things, but then I'm passionate about expansion. I'm very passionate about expansion. So if you're passionate about expansion on the things that you're passionate about, you demand money. You have to have money. And so there has to be some need for having it. And in an economy today where you can be unemployed and make more money and get a check from the government than working. And when I came to Florida and we went to a restaurant, we had to wait to be seated because they weren't staffed enough to, what do you want me to wait? I was like, I didn't understand. She's like, can you wait outside while we, get the table ready? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
there's 5 tables over there.
20 tables in the restaurant. And she said, well, we want the server. The server had requested that we don't seat you because then it looks bad on them because we were understaffed. I'm like, well, let me just wait at the table then if I know I'm going to be waiting. I'm not going to wait in the lobby, So I'm sitting here and then I'm looking at my buddy. I'm like, what's going on, dude? He's like, yeah, because I've been like kind of in my own world for a little while. It's like, yeah, obviously, people are getting checks. I'm like, yeah, but it's that bad, huh? He's like, yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, well, if you don't have a need to work, you're not going to work. Point in case, So, I mean, what's this doing? Like, it's demoralizing the country by not allowing people to be productive, So you give them a check and they don't have to work and then they're not productive and then they have no morale about themselves and then the country goes crap, which is what you're seeing happening. So it's like, if you don't have a need to make your own money, and you don't have there's not a reason to do it, and keep expanding, then you won't pull in more money for expansion.
Right. And you need that why. You need to know why you want, like, being able to say, okay, I need money is one thing. It's another thing to be able to say, I want to support this cause. I want to, build this incredible business. I want to expand it. All of that requires money. So if you can associate your why with the money rather than just looking at it as this inanimate object, it's going to change your perspective and your motivation and your momentum.
Yeah, you gotta have something to do to quite frankly, like, help people and do an activity that requires people to give you money, because then you'll get paid, and you need to do a lot of that activity. The more you do of that activity, the more you'll get paid, and then you'll get smarter and go, well, how do I create systems that help me do this? So you can get paid more and free up more of your time. But I think you just got to ask yourself that question, like, what is it? What is it that you want to do that's going to demand that you receive money for it, and do it? And then you'll probably go, well, I know what I want to do. And I'll go, well, you're probably not doing the right activities to get the money. Well, why not? Well, I don't understand. So you should probably get the skill set so that you can do the right activities to have the money. And then you go, well, I want it to happen faster. And I go, well, unfortunately, skill sets come by doing. So you're going to have to go do those activities with the skill sets you're learning so that you can actually make more money. And then at that point, I think also with money, even if you're doing the money thing, you have to set some game for yourself. So I don't think money comes with the idea of, I'm just going to sit here and go, yeah, let me make money. Like, there's got to be a game that you go, okay, great. So my goal with this game is I want to get to 20 million, And so I'm not going to stop until I figure out how to get to 20 million. So like those games are fun because I believe you have to play a game with money. Like I have that with Bitcoin right now. And then I have people, my brother and I play a game with it every day, right? All right, great. What's going on? And we send back information and we have fun. And like we have a plan, like until I get to 20 million on it, right? Like the game's not over. And then that's just the first part of the game because then there's phase 2 of the game, So I think you got to have different phases to your game, of things to do that require more money. Even like what we're doing with Got Dreams, it's a new game. Right? We have Message to Millions and that brand. We have a new game. It requires more money. We're going to have to raise capital, and it's expansion. So I think you just got to create games that require expansion. Expansion requires money, and money requires something exchangeable that you can get in return for it.
Right. So you made 2, I think, really awesome points. The first one was you need to have a why behind the money. And the second was gamify, have fun with it, figure out how to make it a game because like, who doesn't love playing Monopoly and like have, and building their empire, right? It's fun. So if you can take that mindset and put it in money and gamify it, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and as Eddie Murphy would say, nobody wants those cheap purple bastards bolting in Ralph Avenue. You know what I'm saying? Right? Where they you make nothing on them. But that is true of the game of money. Like even in a business, you have lower level activities, Baltic and Raff Avenue before versus Park Place. Some things you're spending your time on that they don't collect the dough, and but you're still playing the game because you got to get done. Okay, finish it up and move on to the thing like Park Place, Park Avenue. You know, so
Right.
it's a constant moving game of where is your time spent better and more efficiently, and you got to figure that out. But you got to set it up to where you can do something that you're enjoying. You got to set it up that way, and you got to think about that in advance.
Right. That's a great point. Our last question is actually a perfect question regarding this conversation. I'm having a hard time pricing my coaching. What would you suggest? Where do I get started?
Just outcomes, you know. What is it like? Go back. I boil everything down to the program, or not everything, but most things. You know, write down your steps. What are you teaching? You know, and then what's each step worth? You know, we went through this the other night of like, okay, if I'm teaching sales, like if that's one step of my process, just one step. Let's say objections, handling objections was one step of my process. If I handled one objection or two or three objections well, could I get a $2,000 sale? Yeah. So one step in my process and objections is worth a $2,000 investment in this program. You know, so you can break down the steps and the benefits of what steps are worth versus going in holistically. What does this program work? You have a vague idea, but when you have specific steps and you circle step 3 and you go step 3, if the client got this outcome is worth X, and then you go, well, my program, I could say here, my online program is worth $20,000. Well, yeah, you could, right? So could, you know, is it? I think it is. Okay, great. So what would the market, what could you sell it for on the market? You know, well, I mean, probably $3,000-$4,000, right? So whether you sell between $2,000 and $4,000, if it's worth 20, you could sell it for 4. Well, what would the market give you for it? How good of a salesperson are you? How good is your marketing material to get somebody to really want to buy that at $4,000? Could you make that sale at $4,000? Probably have to be more unique and different than other online programs to sell it for 4Gs, but you probably could.
And that's a really important point too when you're thinking about marketing costs, and that's where I spend most of my day is running digital marketing for TED. And so one of the things that I'm always thinking about is what's it going to cost me? What would a lead cost? What would it cost to get somebody to click on this? What would it cost? And then understanding and then doing and then reverse engineering it and go, okay, wow, I can afford to pay, $5, $10, $20 a lead because I know 1 out of 10 leads converts into a $2,000 program. Now I have an idea of what I can afford to spend, how I can afford to build my marketing program because I understand what it's going to take to get a sale.
That's right. Yeah, you got to reverse engineer and think of it strategically and smart like that. You have to, it's you have to think of things from that perspective. Even the economy is money supplies up 30-35%, right? So essentially all our programs and prices should go up by 35%. So I was telling
we should talk about that behind the scenes.
Yeah, right. It's true. I was telling all of our salespeople that today. It's like, well, we haven't raised the price on our online program. But essentially, the client's getting like a $600 to $700 discount because we haven't raised the price. But the dollar's not worth what it used to be. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point. Because I think one of the things people have challenges with when it comes to pricing their own program is they're not thinking about it strategically from a marketing standpoint, or B, what's the value of this when somebody gets a result from this product? They're thinking, am I worth it? And that's not the way to think about marketing. That's not the way to think about your own coaching.
That's right. What's the outcome, And there's different outcomes to everything, right? The outcome isn't just money, even in a business, right? If you're helping somebody with a sales process and they get comfortable and confident in it, that's an outcome. And that comes before you actually make the money and get the client. So there's a lot of different outcomes, and you got to celebrate the wins along the way and understand what the wins are so you can win the game. Because if you're just going for one win, then you spend your entire time working and never being satisfied with it.
Right. That's a great point. So I just want to make sure everybody knows in the description below, if you want to get started with one of Ted's programs, all you got to do is click the link. We got a bunch of free products down below. If you want to get started with video ads, if you want to get started by getting on other people's podcasts so you can start to build an audience, we've got free products down below. And then we've got an upsell product after that. to really take you to the next level on that particular process. So if you're interested in that, all you got to do is click on the link below. We've also got links to the Got Dreams podcast. You can go check it out right now. It's completely free. And we also want to make sure you guys know that we're going to be doing this every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. So if you have questions that you want to ask Ted next time, we're going to be live the following week. If you want to get your questions answered live, leave them right here in the comment section below. Join us next week for Got Dreams. Ted, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful vacation next week.
Thanks, buddy. It's good to be here with everybody, and I'll see you guys the week after.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.